Welcome back. It is always a good day. When I wake up, I give thanks, and I understand that today is a day that I am privileged to introduce you to another extraordinary human being, one with a story that, oof, boy, I'll let you figure out your emotions because I'm still working through mine because I just have been reading her book. So I'll introduce Nikki in just a moment, but first, a quick housekeeping. Thank you. Thank you for the lovely Facebook response in the page. I continue to be a rising creator because everything on the page is authentic. Everything is raw and real. It's what I'm going through. It's not sad. It's not all about grief. We definitely tackle a lot of cool topics with grief, but it's more than that. It's about this beautiful life experience that we're so privileged to have. So that community is warm and fuzzy. So please join us. It's The Next Room with Jane on Facebook, Instagram, same thing. If you want to join me there, of course, it's not as much of an interaction on Instagram because it's more outgoing. And thank you for all the downloads and the shares that I'm getting. The countries, I don't know, we're up to 18, I think. It's really cool to see downloads in Singapore. It's great to see downloads in Australia. Love you guys, Canada. You're strongly right in behind the United States for my downloads. And I do appreciate all the book sales as well. Okay, enough of me. Boy, oh boy. Okay, Nikki Mark. She is my guest today. She is the author of Tommy's Field. Can you see that for my YouTube fans? Tommy's Field. It's love, loss, and the goal of a lifetime. Nikki, I'm going to just have you tell your story because I don't want to stumble over this because it is so unique. Please introduce yourself, and you are a mom, and tell me about why you wrote Tommy's Field.
Okay. Thank you for having me. So nice to be here. Yes, I am a mom. I had two boys, and I was born in Los Angeles. I was a working mom, very busy, very happy, married. And one day, my 12-year-old son, Tommy, back in April of 2018, went to sleep and never woke up. And that morning, I found him and we tried to save him. And my husband was there, and my younger son, who was 10 at the time, was there. And I immediately broke open. I felt like I was dying and awakening at the very same time. I didn't understand. Obviously, I had not been able to process what had just happened. And I started to hear and see and feel things I never had before. And I was just a regular person working with, a busy life. I had no religious background. I really had no spiritual background. Always believed in something more, just never knew what, never had a name for any of it, and really didn't spend much time thinking about it. So after Tommy left, it was very clear to me what was missing. And one thing that was already so missed by our entire community was his laughter, his spirit of play. He was a soccer player, he was a dancer, he was a singer. He connected with people of all kinds and all backgrounds and all ages through play. And if you didn't want to play with him, if you didn't have a smile on your face, if you weren't willing to go to the fun place, like he would find someone who was. And so the day he left, I mean, I did feel like dying, and I think my whole family wanted to die. And a friend came over, and she knew that I had been considering building a field, an athletic field in a public park for children to play on. And 3 days before Tommy left, I drove him to a soccer match down in San Diego, which is about a 2.5 hour drive from Los Angeles. And in that drive, he said to me, he asked, is it possible to go to sleep and not wake up?
No way.
And I said, Well, if you're like 85 years old, that's how your grandmother went. Best way to go. No drama, no pain. But that's when you're 85. We got a long time. And he said, well, it must be in the next, couple minutes, he said, it must be really hard for a parent to lose a child. And I looked at him as I'm driving in traffic and I said, well, that's not going to happen here. I go first. And I started to describe and talk to him about the signs I would give him so that he knew it was me. And we just sort of had fun with the conversation. He started asking me about psychics, if I had ever seen one. And it was just highly unusual for a family who had never had these kinds of discussions before. And I told him in that conversation everything a mother would want to tell their child if she knew he were leaving. And I remember feeling warm and hot and as if I was being guided to have this conversation. And so he asked me in that same conversation, what are you going to do next, Mom? I did startups in my life, 3 different startups here in Los Angeles, and I had just finished a big project. And I said, I don't know, but it has to be really meaningful. And in the meanwhile, I'd like to refurbish a field in a park for children to play on. And he said, that's so cool. Our neighborhood doesn't have anything like this. Can't wait to play on it. And so the day he left, a friend came over and said, let's build that field. Let's share Tommy's spirit of play
Wow.
with the world and continue to impact others with it.
Wow. Okay, so I have that piece highlighted in the book. So Tommy crosses over to the next room on April 17th, 2018. Happens to be my mother's birthday, April 17th, which that really hit me. And the day that your son leaves is the day that Tommy's field was officially born. How does that happen? How could you even, I don't even know how you got up that morning. So let's talk about Tommy's field. We have to go back to that conversation that you had with him in the car. Do you feel like he had a premonition that he wasn't going to be around very long?
That was the first time. The morning he didn't wake up, I thought back immediately to that conversation.
Okay.
And I knew that we had like souls talking on some deeper level.
All
And I
right.
had never even contemplated my soul before, but I just knew, oh, we were talking, while Tommy and I were having one conversation, our souls were having another,
Wow.
and that this was preparing us for what was to come. And every time I think I'm crazy, every time I think this is an accident, I go back to that conversation. I remember, no, we had this conversation, and it will always remind me that it was in some way a plan. And I even told my husband that morning when he looked at me, I just said, this is some sort of plan. I don't understand it, but Tommy did his part and I'm going to do mine. And I don't even know what that is.
Huh. Okay. So, just not even a chapter 3. Okay. So as I'm reading this, I'm making little notes, as you can see, all my little sticky notes. You wrote about Tommy coming on the planet with an innate fear. Can you touch on that? What did you mean by that?
He had like an anxiety about time, and he was moving very, very fast. His first word literally was go, and his second was outside. And it was a lot keeping up with him. And
Wow.
so he kind of, in retrospect, it felt like he was racing through time, filling every day up to the maximum level that he could, knowing maybe on some deeper level that his time would be short here.
Wow. We're going to circle back to Tommy's field because you've done something just miraculously extraordinary with this project. But you and I have a mutual. I don't know if she's your friend. She's my friend. She may just be an acquaintance to you. But in the throes of your grief, another friend reaches out and says, have you ever spoken to a psychic medium? And you had already said that that wasn't something you were really, a deep dive doing, or something that you even believed in or thought about doing. Let's talk about my dear friend Pamela Osley for a moment. She enters into your story right around chapter 5. No doubt about this woman's gifts, and she's now retired from doing personal readings. So all of you that are like, oh, I have to talk to Pam, I'm sorry, but she did it for so long, she needed to hang up that shingle. She's moved on to other things in her life. Talk to me about that conversation, because it seemed to me like Tommy was just waiting to talk to you and knew somehow that your friend was going to connect you to this amazing woman named Pamela Osley so that you could talk to Tommy. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So the day of, or perhaps right after Tommy's funeral, I turned to my best friend and I said, I want to see a medium. And I remembered that my mother, when I was in my early 20s, had seen one once. She told me that her grandmother's spirit kept waking her up and holding her hand in the morning, and it was scaring her. And I thought, what is she talking about? Anyway, she went to see a medium who was working out of his apartment in the valley for $75, and later became one of the best known mediums ever.
Really?
And yeah, it ended up being James Van Prague. And
Oh my goodness, that's wild.
she had no idea. And it was right, I think, when he was beginning, or, wasn't well known yet. And anyways, she had an amazing reading. My dad was there. He was a non-believer. They both left believers. And I remembered that. And so when Tommy left, I was so desperate to know, could I connect with the spirit of my son? Because I was hearing and seeing and feeling things, and I knew that people said they could. And I wanted to know if that was possible, because if it was, then it would give me just a little bit of hope that we could continue growing and learning and loving. So my friend, a couple days later, gave me a Post-it and said, call Pam on this day at this time, and she knows your first name. That's it. And I hope this helps you. Wow. And I called Pam. I went into Tommy's room. I lit a candle. I brought my journal. I was on the floor. I didn't know if I could live another second. I was so, so sad. And she changed my life. She immediately just said, your son is here. You lost a son. She described his age. She described his personality. She described his hopes and his dreams, the conversation we had in the car down to San Diego. And she, in 60 minutes, just gave me the hope I needed. I felt lighter. And that became my barometer as to whether I believed in something and if something was going to help me on this healing journey. If I felt just a little bit lighter, then there was some deeper truth and knowing to it. And Pam was the beginning of my spiritual journey, which I set out really to explore. Is it possible to heal a mother's broken heart?
Wow. It's just it's amazing. And this show, we explore all types of things because death is dinner conversation for me anyway. And we're in no way suggesting that a psychic is the only way to get some clarity over your grief. I mean, do what you need to do, whether it's a clergy or whether it's a friend group or a grief group. But I have found too that a reputable psychic medium that seriously knows how to connect with the other side can give an enormous amount of peace. So how cool is that? So props to Pam. She is wonderful. I just talked to her last week. So, and she's thriving in her newfound career of just enjoying life. Okay, so now you've opened up. You've started on this journey. I'm assuming that Doug, your husband, was not a big believer in all of the woo-woo side of things as well. Talk to me about the signs that you started receiving, because you, Doug, and Donovan all connected with Tommy in completely different ways. Talk to me about how your beautiful son, Tommy, started reaching out.
So the day he left, all of a sudden, we closed his room and our house was full of friends and family, everyone outside in the backyard, some in the living room, certainly none in Tommy's room. And when we went back, I don't know, later that evening to bed, which of course we didn't sleep, and the three of us didn't even know what to do, I opened Tommy's bedroom and the television was on. And I looked at Dono and my younger son and I asked, were you in Tommy's room? Just thinking, it's okay, but I'm curious, did you turn the television on? And he said, no, but everyone's been outside, but I noticed when I walked by earlier, it was on. I didn't know how. And I looked at my husband and who was like, I have no idea. So I just thought, well, maybe that's a sign. And I closed the door and I said, night, T, I love you. And I heard him say, I love you too, Mom. Like, and I didn't know if I was making it up. I didn't know
Sure.
what I heard, but I had been guided that whole day by someone telling me to let everyone into my home, that this was not just about me, that this was a community, that that we were in this together. And so the very private, shy person I was guided to be open and to like really welcome this community. And so as people started filling up our home, television was on, and then the television came on again. And, like a few days later when a friend was over and was talking about Tommy, and all of a sudden the TV went on by itself. So I wasn't crazy anymore because it just happened while we were there. It went on again in the middle of the night. Music started going on. Lights were flickering. My son Donovan kept saying, I hear him, I hear him. And I kept saying, I feel him. My husband, who was not really a believer, but was like, I keep smelling. I keep having this
Wow.
smell. And then our dog Ginger would just stare at the air and start shaking and in a corner, looking like
Wow.
a bird was flying all around, but it was invisible. And so my son Donovan said, we know when Tommy's here, I hear him and Mom feels him and Dad smells him and Ginger sees him. And
Ugh.
yeah, but there were so many signs. And I would say it was my dreams where I got the most direct communication from him, from ancestors, from teachers, from energies with no shape. And I did not understand any of it, but I wrote
Sure.
all of it down and
Good.
it
In your
gave me
green journal.
in my journal and I started to connect some dots.
Yeah. You know, Nikki, there is a very distinct difference between a dream and a visitation. And if you are getting visited by those that have, transcended to whatever realm that they decided to transcend to, you can remember every detail of a visitation. I mean, years later, you can describe it. Where a dream, they come and they go. They fade so quickly, and it's like, whoa, 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 what was that dream? So I do believe you were having visitations. Let's talk about, so you had a funeral for him, but then Pam had mentioned there was something else Tommy was jumping up and down about that he was very excited about because there was another event that you had, and you all had some pretty remarkable signs that day. What was it that you had to plan after you had to bury your son?
So we learned that Tommy had just so many connections across the city, and we wanted to put on a memorial for all of his friends. And we went up to UCLA and had about 1,000 people on the soccer field
Wow.
to
Wow.
honor him. And this was Tommy. This was
Right.
not me. I was private. My circle was small.
How I just have to know, how does a almost 13-year-old young boy connect with that many human beings in his short lifetime. You have to tell us, I know it was club soccer, but that's extraordinary that 1,000 people showed up to honor this young human being who was filled with compassion. Just the stories that you tell about what he would do for people that he didn't want them to eat alone at lunch. So go there. How did this happen for Tommy?
Yeah, in retrospect, you know, his friends like looked at him and calling him like the wizard. They didn't
Ah,
understand it, how he was everywhere all at once. And
wow.
he would, at 2 years old, his preschool director called him the mayor because he would just walk in and wave, and he was friends with everybody, the gardener, the janitor, the
Mm.
headmaster, the
Oh,
teachers. He just had that gift of a
wow.
smile and the ability to laugh and talk to people about anything.
Mm.
Girls, boys, men, women, young, it didn't matter. And
Wow.
I would often look at him and wonder, are you my child? Like, how did this happen?
So wild.
And so we walked up to UCLA, we had this memorial, and Pam told me he would be there. And I just looked for him, and I knew he would be there in some way. And right when the ceremony was to start, a huge black speaker fell over in front. And there were multiple speakers, all the same size, all, you know, all
Right.
in different places. But the one right in front just fell over and made a huge thump. And everyone thought it was like a prop error. And Donovan and I looked at each other and we just knew like
Sure.
that was Tommy. And then the minute I started speaking with Donovan and we went last, a hawk that had
Mm.
similar to one that had been in my backyard the day that Tommy left, that people had noticed sitting and watching all day long, um, was came and flew in overhead and just circled me round and round and round as I spoke. And so I just knew he was there. And when I left the field, I heard him say what he would say to me after every birthday party I ever held for him. Thank you so much, Mom. I loved it.
Mm.
And I was like, wow, I can still, am I making this up? Because
Sure.
that's what he would have said, or, but it just came out of nowhere and I just heard it. So I felt very connected. I felt like the signs were there. He was there and he loved it.
Tell me about the significance of the red rose.
The same girlfriend who walked in and said, let's build that field, Nikki, walked in with a red rose bush. And she said, plant this in your front yard. And when it blooms, it will remind you of the love you have
Mm.
with Tommy. And it was sort of like a cycle of life message as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, wow, red roses actually were on his socks that he loved. They were on, he liked Guns N' Roses, and they were on the posters in his room. There was a song that he loved at the time with roses in the title. And I just thought, it's just so perfect because it's red, it's love, it's bold. Like he was definitely a bold kid, um, and just felt like I would continue. It just felt like the perfect symbol. And so now, honestly, red roses I put in my home
Mm. Oh,
whenever I can because it makes me feel like I'm honoring him, but also that he's here. Like this is my sign to him.
right. May I say that everyone needs a girlfriend like your girlfriend? That's
Yes.
great. Major, major props to her for just connecting on that level. Okay, so, oh boy, what an incredible show so far. I have so many places to take this. So here's Tommy. He's on club teams. He's this exuberant, loving, compassionate, cool kid who told you, by the way, at a very young age that he was going to play pro ball. Like he was going to Europe. He was saying, Mom, you better get ready. I'm leaving home. Um, let's talk about Tommy's field because you have taken uh, arguably the most tragic thing a parent can ever experience in this lifetime and turned it into something incredibly beautiful. So let's talk about Tommy's Field and how we can help you to continue to grow this dream.
Well, after we agreed, like, yes, let's build this field, let's honor him, the Tommy's field. I woke up every day to honor him and build that field, and every day to learn how to restart my life so that my younger son, Donovan, could have a beautiful life ahead and a mother that he needed. And so every day I took a step for each one of them. And the the journey to build Tommy's Field in a local park ended up being a drama I never expected. I mean, it was beautiful in terms of the fundraising and all the support. People came out and raised like over $1 million for this field to gift to the city of Los Angeles. And yet the bureaucracy and then the neighbors who live next to the park, it just became a huge drama. But the drama, quite frankly, was also part of my healing journey, was part of finding my voice. And in the midst of this drama, I was writing, and I started writing because writing, along with serving and building this field, were things that made me feel lighter, and they were helping me process. And so I started writing 5, 6, 7 hours a day and treating it like a job, like a startup. Like I was now my own startup, trying to become something new because I could never be what I was before. And I started writing the story of Tommy's Field because I could not believe the drama that I was facing. And I began to realize that it was other people's stories that were helping me, and that in some way this story was going to help others. And I remember turning to my husband, who kind of was looking at me, where is my startup girl? Like, are you going back to work? And I said, I think I'm my own startup now, and I'm writing this story, and it's important, and I really don't know why. And so ultimately, the healing journey that I went on started healing my heart. And the more I healed on the inside, the more progress I made on cutting through city politics and the drama that ensued on the outside. And so I saw this relationship between my inside and my outside. And the more I built the more I made progress with the field, the more I healed inside, outside. So the relationship became very obvious to me. And as somebody who had 20, 25 years in building startups and creating visions out of nothing, I thought, maybe it's possible to not only connect with my son's spirit as a regular person, but maybe it is possible to heal a mother's broken heart. And what if I find alternative ways of doing so? Because I really did not, talk therapy wasn't going to work fast enough for me. And I really am sensitive and did not want to go to medication. And so I wrote Tommy's Field. I didn't even know how it was going to end because I was in the middle of the entire experience as I wrote it. And I felt Tommy writing it with me. I felt a team writing it with me. I was not a writer. I was learning how to write, but I loved every minute of it. And so this is the result, not only a full-size athletic field with lights in a public park that finally got approved, that is hundreds of kids play on every day, that is so incredibly fulfilling, but this book that documents a healing journey that seems to be touching people.
Okay. It is beautiful. I mean, it is,
Yeah.
I get so many books because of the show, which I love. I got a whole big thing of them behind me of all the books. And this is by far one of the most beautifully written. It's honest, it's true, and it just resonates. Like from the first chapter, I was like, oh my God, this book is so good. And at first I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can handle it because I'm very sensitive too. And because I do this show that is about a lot of loss, I can get kind of affected. So I have to be super careful with my energy and pick and choose. And sometimes I have to put that down and pick up just a goofy novel. But oh my God, I just loved it so much. I just kept talking about it to my husband, and I'm like, this book, I don't know. I see a screenplay. I see it going different places.
So does Tommy, by the way.
Oh,
he does too.
Of course. No, it's just, you can, like, I can see in my mind's eye, I see this whole thing. And I just love what you've done. So you've mentioned it twice. Is it possible to heal a mother's broken heart?
So healing is a recovery. And as my husband said to me along the way, he'll be in recovery every day.
Yes.
It's just what is the practice of recovery that works best for each of us.
Oh,
and for
good.
me, I became, because of Pam, and because of what I was hearing and seeing and feeling and confirming in my own, these new senses opening up, I couldn't deny what was happening to me. So I surrendered completely. In fact, I said it, I surrender. And what do you want me to do? And I decided that an alternative healing journey, exploring all these other avenues of healing, would be my course of action. And it became my idea of play and my idea of fun. And I felt like I became this bridge between my son in one world and my son in this world. And that was where I wanted to be and live my life.
Right.
And so I found that the more I started talking about my loss, the more I was healing. And the more I started sharing my stories and my experiences, other people started sharing theirs. And the more I started sharing my resources and my, like, how it was helping me, the more people wanted to try them. And my experiment grew larger. That it wasn't just me, it was now people I was meeting and how could it impact them. And I just kept remembering that Tommy's spirit was of play, and he taught me how to do it. And I felt like he had come to show me, this is how you live life. Like, try the things you want to try and don't be scared and be who you want to be. And I kept hearing him saying, believe in yourself, Mom, believe in yourself. And so I didn't even know who myself was, but I was being given this opportunity that I honestly, of course, would throw away to have him back. But this was the opportunity I was being given to recreate my life kind of however I wanted, because I was starting with a, ground zero. And so I laugh, I sing, I play, I have beautiful moments. I'm grateful for my amazing community that I built because of Tommy. I mean, I have, my perspective on life is completely different. I miss him every day. I connect with him every day in my way. I still write to him every night in my green journal. And I bridge two worlds because that's where I feel most comfortable living, and it works for me, and I'm enjoying the experience. Yeah. I mean, again, I'd throw it all away to have him back. It's horrible. I don't wish it upon anyone, but I'm healing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is a journey that takes a lifetime. It's not linear. There is no end game with grief.
I'll tell you though, I also feel like it's a mission. I feel my great-great-grandparents lost a child, a boy who was 12 years old too. And I didn't know that until about 6 months before Tommy passed away. And I remember learning that and being like, what is this? My family has tragedy. I didn't know that. And why didn't anybody know about this boy in my family? So when this happened to Tommy about 6 months later, I thought back to that day and I thought, oh, I have a cycle of loss in my family. I don't know how it works, but it made its way to me. And
interesting.
I want to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else in my family ever again. So I'm going to do my very, very best to clean this up. And the way to do that for me was to heal my heart and to honor my son and make sure the story was not forgotten, and just see where that led me and do my very, very best. It felt like Tommy did his part. He came, he conquered, he left, and now somehow me and the rest of us we're left to do something with it.
Yeah, to pick up those pieces. How are you now as a mom with Donovan? You know, did any of this affect you in the way that you got overprotective with him? You know, did you start to freak out and think it was something genetic? How are you as a mom with Dono, as you call him?
I think early on, he was concerned about his heart because although the doctors still don't know what happened to Tommy, ultimately his heart went out. No one really knows why. So Donna, we got him tested just so he could have peace of mind.
Sure. He was 10.
He was 10 years old. I said to him very early on, if I squeeze you too tight, if I'm too protective of you, just tell me, I'll back off. And he said,
Good.
it's okay. You know, right now it's okay. And there have been times, he's now a teenager, along the way where he's like, back off. Like, it's just too much.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I understand,
Okay.
I understand
I
that.
hear you.
And the truth is, Dono lost his big brother and his best friend and his mentor, and that is something he will be processing in his way. And I think my family, one of the things that has worked is that we've all allowed each other to grieve and heal in our own way and in our own time.
Right.
And that has been a very big factor to us staying close and together. But I also realize I can't force Donovan to believe the things I believe or engage in the things I want him to engage in, but I can continue to heal my heart. And by healing myself, it will naturally help him heal.
Absolutely.
And that's my biggest approach to supporting him as a mother. Of course, I go to all soccer matches. I'm here for everything he wants me to be, and he knows that. But he's also a teenager that,
Sure.
like, get lost, mom,
Yeah.
So
No, I hear you. My son was a teenager once. It's like that. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. Did Donovan switch over because Tommy was so physically active and he was kind of after his little brother to not be on video games so much and to be more active and get outside? Did Dono hear him and pivot?
Donna was a soccer player with Tommy as well. They played every day in the backyard. So when Tommy left, that was the first thing Donovan missed the most.
Oh,
And that's where he poured his grief into, is playing.
okay. All
And it
right.
was very fitting given that was
Sure.
Tommy's message. And so playing became the way he processed his grief and connected with his brother, and he still plays today.
I love that. Boy, oh boy, Nikki. I'm just so grateful to you to be able to be so transparent with your journey and to share such a beautiful book with us. It's Tommy's Field, it's Love, Loss, and the Goal of a Lifetime for you YouTube people. Don't worry, I'll put links to everything so you'll be able to find the book easily and purchase it because it is a beautiful story. And then you can pass it along and share it with someone. Is there anything I didn't touch on? Is there something that you want to share? It's your show. So please have at it. Before we say goodbye, I'd like you to express yourself if I missed something through this interview.
Oh, I think that the only thing I'd like to add maybe about the book itself is that I started with the loss, and it gives a very intimate and real portrayal of what I went through. And I know it's difficult, and the book gets easier and it gets a lot more fun and interesting as it goes along. So get through it. But I did it this way for two reasons. One is that we don't really talk about loss that much as a society, and life and death. And I wanted to share with people what it's like and to teach from my perspective without them having to go through the actual pain themselves. I also wanted to share what community can do to help others who have lost, not in a self-help way, not by telling people what they should do, but simply by sharing how community showed up for me, people I didn't even know, to help people realize when something like this happens or there is a loss to someone close to you, some of the ways they can help them that they may not think about, because I certainly would not have known how to help someone else the way others help me. And so and the last thing I'll say about the book is I've read thousands of books. I've studied, I've experimented with healers, and I got really frustrated along the way that it was all so woo-woo and incomprehensible for a regular person like I had been before Tommy left. And I had tried to read some of these books before he left, just on a whim. They were bestsellers. And I thought, I have no idea what these authors are talking about. And
Right.
what is this about? But then when Tommy left, I was so desperate, and I read those same books, and then I knew everything they were talking about.
Sure.
And so what I tried to do in this book was really infuse a lot of the teachings and learnings and studies that I had absorbed, and then communicate them in a very simple way that it's more digestible for people who are like I was 5 years ago.
Wow. Yeah, I actually have a friend that I am going to order a copy for that will really benefit from this. Actually, I've got a lot of friends that have lost children and they're grappling. They just don't know. And I always say, pick up a pen and write.
Yeah.
If there's one thing I would encourage you to do is write it down. It is unbelievable, the healing, and not just healing, but the help you can receive when you put pen to paper. I don't know what it is. There's a magic potion in that pen. So
I think it's like a journey into yourself,
yes,
and you
yes,
find things you don't even know are
right,
there. And
right. No,
so
yeah,
the book is really, yes, I lost a child, and it's
right,
one of the worst you can, but it's for any kind of loss, and we all
right,
lose someone or something. And that was my point, kind of, was like, if I can heal a mother's heart from this kind of loss, then
right,
all the other kinds of loss, we can do this too.
right. What are we capable of? Well,
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you it's beautiful. And I didn't find it, I wasn't sobbing through the whole thing because I just felt it was so poignant. I knew we were going somewhere really grand and special with this book. And mission accomplished. Tommy's filled this
Thank
love,
you.
loss, and the goal of a lifetime. Here it is. Nikki Mark, my guest today. Nikki, thank you so much. And thanks to Pam for all her gifts. Boy, she has just helped thousands and thousands of individuals to kind of get clarity and to understand that love never dies. We just go on and on and on and on into the next room. So we go. So thank you to Tommy. Thank you to your husband, Doug, and Dono. And of course, thank you to you for joining us today. And I encourage you to please purchase Tommy's Field. You'll really, really enjoy this journey. And it's love, loss, and it is the goal of a lifetime. Here it is again. Thanks again, Nikki, for being on the
Thank
show.
you
I
so much.
appreciate it.
Loved it.
I'm going to have to edit that.